Are you tired of trolls trolling on something that wasn't made for them? Or bothered by haters not allowing you to enjoy parts of the fandom you're in when it's perfectly normal to? Well, you have made it to one of the right videos. Deku Baku, or Baku Deku. What an interesting subject. For those who don't know what I'm all about, I'm a cultured teen who just so happens to enjoy programs made by different parts of the world, including parts in Asia. And one particular field of entertainment that seems to take over is anime. Anime. We've been watching it since before we even knew it was anime. Cutting to the point, like most people, I would start a series because maybe finding one of the character designs cool, or hot, or how good the description was. That's how most people start. But unlike most people, I wouldn't really, fall for the characters. I mean, I would sometimes highly relate to a character or even aspire to be like them, like we all would, but nothing more than that. I'm clarifying this because, as you all know nowadays, we've normalized how much we've adored these 2D figures, which isn't a problem, but I tend to focus more on the plot more than most, meaning that I've never really been actively in an anime fandom before. I would just watch, and when I wasn't watching, I wouldn't think about it that much. But that was all before. The first time I watched My Hero Academia was before I knew a legal website even existed. So I was scrolling through an anime app looking for a new time to be filled. And what I noticed at first was that the art of this show was different, as in it looked very thick. I started it just a little before season 2 was released on the app. I think a lot has happened since. I would be hyped up watching new episodes come out, but be thankful that they would end. I say this because the amount of ads that would be in an episode on this app, which would make me less wanting to watch it. But I would find myself not wanting the episodes to end, even if it pained me. By the way, this app's usage would last till the end of season 4 of the show in this story. I would mention the show here and there when it would be brought up, but I was still a person that didn't really join fandoms. Now, the last episode of season 4, that was it. That was the trigger. Not only was that an awesome episode, it was the after credits that triggered something in me. By the way, my favorite character in the show is Midoriya Izuku, the main character. Anyways, that last episode left me with the most urgent feeling of anticipation, of wanting more on the subject of his powers, etc. And I couldn't wait for the next season. To be in all fair, even before that trigger, I was still very interested in other things in the series, like their friendships, finding Shigaraki weirdly attractive in the Japanese sub voice instead of the dub, and my home slice learning how to use his powers properly, etc. And a bunch of other things that had brought me to the edge of the cliff. And that trigger was just that final step that had me fallen. Little did I know that the first fandom that I've ever joined, which would lead to joining other fandom too, of course, was apparently known in the community to be the most toxic. Just my luck. Well, my journey in this fandom is what led to this video, and there is a lot to talk about. But I've managed to summarize these topics in only 6 big reasons for your convenience. Toxic is not exactly what I would personally word it. Misunderstood, yes. It is not an uncommon knowledge that female characters are usually not the best written characters when it comes to anime. But some are not the worst written ones either. There are many female anime characters out there that are simply one of the best characters. For example, Ursa from Fairy Tales, and more. Specifically, My Hero Academia is one of the not-so-great examples of greatly written female characters. So it makes it hard to ship the straight ships, and it shouldn't be a surprise that the non-straight ships are more popular, because both their written characters hold equal value and more. I'm not sure that I worded that the way I wanted, but I hope it makes sense. And the fact that Uraraka and the MC don't develop as much as they should to be a solid canon ship makes it harder. A good example of canon development is Berserk. Not to mention that I personally am not a fan of I want to be just like him, etc. to establish romance and ships. I mean, there's nothing wrong with inspiring to be like your significant other, but when it's off the bat to establish their dilemma, it gives very much sibling vibes. And I'm not really all for that. It reminds me of the relationship that Izuku has with All Might. As in, I look up to him and I want to be just like him. Almost like a family love. I honestly don't know why they would add that to her character if they weren't going to progress with their relationship, especially if she supposedly is a possible future romance candidate for the MC. By the way, switching subjects, I'm not saying that all the male characters on this show are all written better, but I feel as though some of the female characters, even the villains, had a lot of potential to hold more depth to them. So I was a bit disappointed, but not as disappointed as I was at One Piece. I'm pretty sure nothing could top that experience. Moving on, the fandom is allowed to be a fandom. It honestly shocks me when I see people bash this fandom for doing what most other fandoms do. Meaning that there's absolutely nothing wrong with them creating and liking non-canon content. It's not an excuse to bully and be phobic to these people for literally being fans. For example, the Marvel fandom has a colossal amount of creative supporters that make non-canon content all the time. And I'm not saying they're all acceptable, but it is expected in a fandom. The studio even made a series of non-canon content called Marvel's What If. So it's honestly ridiculous for the amount of backlash these fans get. Although, on a different side, to the fans who purposely attack and insult the creator for his canon decisions are also ridiculous. It's his content, and if you despise what he decides, then why don't you just make your own content with your own original characters? Is what I want to say.
Okay.
The people that simply won't accept and make unnecessary demands of the canon contents are the true toxic fans. And I specify the word unnecessary demands because not all demands are unnecessary. Some are actually pretty helpful. Just know your limits. And in my personal opinion, that goes for non-canon content creators from all fandoms as well. Find your people. I have a little more to rant before getting to the main course. It absolutely boggles me at the amount of blunt homophobic acts that get so easily accepted when a group of people agrees. I see comments like, finally, a normal part of the fandom, or many of these examples, just because they ship the straight ships. I thought that people at least wouldn't be this obvious nowadays to their homophobic thoughts, but that was all thrown out the window when they found their group of people. I'm even defending the sus cosplayers for this. The reason I think the fandom is like this is because there's equally as many alt fans, usually more queers, as regular fans, normies, creating a whirlpool of misunderstandings. The regulars probably never really seen a part of their fandom like this before, since they're on a totally different wavelength when it comes to being in a fandom. But like I said, there is as much of each. No wonder the regulars who are not used to this type of fandom experience are shocked. Even so, that is no excuse for the amount of hate and unnecessary homophobic commentaries. Everyone is trying to enjoy this fandom equally. Just because you don't like it, that doesn't make it not normal. Well, that was a short segment. As we're on this topic, since I've cleared the fact that My Hero Academia is a very diverse group of fans, it is no surprise at the amount of times I've seen adults be in the wrong part of the fandom. And I'm not saying all of them do this, but for some reason, instead of scrolling by from that part, they feel the need to commentate or criticize on that side. And I mean, come on. They're animated characters voiced by literal adults. This quick video also has a good point.
So let's talk about age in anime, because I posted this video on my spam account yesterday and people got mad. I made a video about this topic back in 2021, but it seems people still don't get it, so let's go. Point blank, age in anime is whack. Fucking whack. You got characters built like grown-ass adults and authors will be like minor. And then on the other side, you'll have characters built like literal children and authors will be like, I'll make her 1,000 years old. But you'll still have people saying, even though the anime minor looks like an adult, he still acts like a child. Bro, no he doesn't. You put Gojo, Draken, and Jotaro side by side, and you tell me who looks and acts like they're pushing 30. And y'all always want to overlook Yuji and Sukuna. So Yuji's supposed to be 15, right? And y'all simp for Sukuna. So does that mean everyone who simps for Sukuna is a pedo because they simp for a 15-year-old's body? Of course, there's a lot of gray area here. But at the end of the day, most people can differentiate between reality and fiction. So save the energy you have for defending fictional minors for the real-life minors who are getting preyed upon on this app.
Some of y'all literally lose their minds over this instead of worrying about actual criminals. Regardless, because of their unnecessary commentaries, they got people from that age group of fans questioning themselves on liking characters of their age, thus making them comment the same things because those comments make them feel wrong. There's probably some other elements I'm missing from this argument, but this is pretty much how I would summarize it. Just because you don't feel as if you can enjoy these contents doesn't mean you should stop others as well. It is also really sad as well that I see a lot of people use it as an excuse to be homophobic. Anyways, like in the big mouth theory, part of the growing youth are going to like and explore people their age, and especially when certain characters are designed to be explored as crushes to fans and to fantasize about. It is to be expected and not shamed upon. If it bothers you, move on. It's as simple as that. At least it's not drugs. Moving on. I'll just go ahead and say it. They're not enemies. Yes, I'm done with the rant. The hate on hate within them doesn't exist. Let me explain myself before someone starts writing a paragraph. Their friendship grows just as steadily as the rivalry, and their chemistry sprouts over time. And for those who don't see my reasoning, let me clarify. I don't know why, but a lot of people seem to have this idea in their head of Izuku being this huge pity party back in middle school. I mean, yes, he was a victim to being picked on, but I personally don't think that weakened his mind state enough to traumatize him or something. Obviously, it would get him down, but let me elaborate. Let's talk about that scene. Yes, that scene. I believe that the reason for that scene was for the author to show the peak of how Body got. I'm not belittling that situation, but the fact that the author only showed the worst when Bakugo heard about him wanting to be a hero still implies that he and his friends most definitely ignored Izuku most of middle school and didn't bully him 24/7. I'm not saying that that situation wouldn't still make him feel bad. What I'm saying is that it wouldn't really get to him. And I know that seemed harsh, but imagine if you were born with 4 fingers on both hands and someone was trying to make you feel bad for that. You wouldn't really think much of it since you never experienced what it was like to have 5 fingers on your hands. Yeah, there would be lots of advantages to having 5 fingers, but you wouldn't know any better. So imagine that, but everyone starting with 4 fingers. A statement like that would make you feel bad and more, depending on the person, but it wouldn't really break him like how everybody wanted to Izuku, if that makes sense. And with them overcoming their past, just proves that their bond is stronger. Yes, their past, as Katsuki went into huge development. For those who knew the problems with him in the past, but don't know why it was a problem to begin with, and passed it off as him simply hating the other, let me explain. And for those who do know, y'all can skip to this. My first impression of Katsuki in early seasons was chill. But he quickly became entertaining as he reminded me of me very much in 7th grade. Yes, the dye and stuff, but thank goodness not the walk. So were very few students I knew back then. Embarrassing, yes, but nobody liked 7th grade. It was horrible. Back to the topic, his dynamic towards Izuku back in middle school, even when they were younger, was very obvious. Even at a young age, he kept being told by people who admired his strength that he was better than most kids for just having that power, and he brought to his attention that he was probably destined to be one of the greatest heroes, because his quirk was very strong, end quote. We all know that Katsuki is pretty smart, as we all saw in that one scene when they were younger. That was the moment he realized another person, like the ones who admire him, had potential to be a hero like him. Not power strength like him, but heart strength, and that scared him. Well, there's probably a better word to describe how he felt during that moment. But as we all know, fear leads to anger, and vice versa. Anyways, when Deku became a Deku, Katsuki started being mean to him to water down the competition. Now in middle school, remember how I told y'all that Katsuki and his friends probably ignored Izuku most, if not all of middle school? Well, that probably hinted that Katsuki also realized at a young age that the world isn't fair to everyone, and it was best to crush someone's hopes and dreams as a way to let them down easy instead of witnessing them keep trying and ending up getting hurt. He did want to be a hero after all. And I say also realized, as we all know that Izuku realized that fact a little earlier. To briefly finish his story analysis, when they got to UA, Katsuki's thoughts of someone possibly better than him rises up again because of his fragile ego that's been growing so far or whatever. But that was shown to be his character traits in the early seasons. They both have grown severely, and so has their relationship. A lot of people were annoyed by him and still are when we started discussing this anime. But as I said before, I found him more entertaining than annoying, and he made some scenes more interesting to me. Now with this solid argument, it's not like I saw them being great with each other from the bat. Like I said, I usually come to anime mostly focusing on the plot and not a huge shipper. It took for the show to convince me and make that connection. So saying that they don't go good with each other doesn't hold up in an argument. And that's me saying this without even bringing in the details yet. I'm not here to convince you why you should ship them romantically, of course. That is for non-canon stuff. And there is a wrong way to ship them, in my opinion. And it's tough because it's the most popular way I see them shipped. But we'll dive into that in a later portion of this. It's just to get a clue of why people ship them. In fact, what I've been talking about is obviously referring to mostly their canon bromance journey. Bromance. I absolutely love bromance. As the song goes, nothing really gay about it. Thus, why I use the word canon. Here's some of my favorite examples of bromance in anime. Now, when I heard that they used to be childhood friends, I immediately hoped that they would become friends again. But I know if they're going on that route, it would take time because of both of their personal dilemma. So I wasn't sure if they really would take that route, or just make them full-on enemies. Luckily, it went the first way. The pace of that was slower than I was expecting, but little moments and scenes from those two kept fueling the fire for me. Like for example, when Katsuki cried in front of Izuku out of frustration, and Izuku almost told him his secret right away, I was like, wait a minute, my brain didn't put two and two together until later, realizing that there seemed to be a subconscious trust between these two, even in the early seasons. Not to mention that scene when the League of Villains captured Katsuki, or during that whole episode when they started fighting because Katsuki believed that he destroyed All Might. At that point, I wanted them to be best friends through and through, because I'm a huge sucker for bromance. Although, when I saw them talking about them being rivals in that scene of their aftermath fight, my friendship's wish was a little crushed. Because they could still be friends if they were rivals, but not best friends. Because there would always be this sort of competitive wall between them. But when I saw Katsuki giving Izuku some pointers, my mood got lifted again. My perspective changed because they could still get really close and help each other. Warning, Season 4 or Season 5 spoilers. Oh, when I saw that they allowed Katsuki and One for All secret, I was beyond happy and proud of their progress and couldn't wait for them to keep trying to fix their relationship. This is honestly meant to enlighten any individual who is not familiar with different fandom types and how to act on those. Obviously, I'm not an expert, and a lot of you will simply dislike and write a paragraph on what they head-heartedly think is right. This is not about what's right or wrong. This is just a script to help you understand how to respect creative fans trying to enjoy this fandom with not necessarily as many canon aspects as you do. Just because you're not part of that part doesn't mean you should disrespect it. It's been so long that diversity has been used as a weapon to hate between the same beings. It's sad to see that our efforts vanish when it comes to something as simple as an anime. Now, I know most of you could say, it's an anime, it's not that serious. I just don't like the ship. Then they clearly haven't been listening. Only fools dismiss a solid argument instead of taking it into consideration. And if that wasn't clear, I'm not saying you should ship anyone. But when you turn into a hateful person on something you don't particularly appreciate, then that's when the problem starts. Like the saying goes, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it at all. For it to be solid, personal take. This will slightly turn off tracks from what we were focusing on. So if this conversation isn't your taste, feel free to stop at the conclusion. Now, for those who stuck around for the juicy bit, let's get started. Alright, let me just say, I'm not saying that this ship is all perfect and they belong together, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. If that's what you interpreted from all this, we're extremely closed-minded during this whole thing. And it's just not how I see things altogether. I'm a fairly reasonable person. Personally, I'm picky when enjoying content from this ship. Izuku is in charge of this relationship, the way I see it. I personally enjoy than I would ever. It just makes sense to me. And if you don't know what that means, then never mind. No matter who would be the pitcher, Izuku would be in charge somehow. If it is, Deku would have to be the dominant one for me to actually enjoy that fan content. If Bakugo was the pitcher. That's actually one way I see being done right. And the only way I see Izuku being the submissive one in fan content would be if only he was the batter, aka my favorite way for them to be in fan content. Let's be honest, Katsuki gives off huge bratty bottom vibes, if I know one, and I do. After all they've been through, I have a feeling. And the toxicity I actually get from this fandom is definitely when they pen Izuku out to be the little B-word who can't handle himself in this ship. I mean, I'll admit that he was very unsure of himself in the beginning. But the people seem to be stuck on that. One of the reasons I think I hate. And I say I think because I don't hate things easily. And sure, there are ways to mess up that I've seen mostly when they completely don't add their personalities into non-canon content. And can be done delightfully, but that is very rare to see. It's not like I started off hating it that way immediately. I did start off with it and saw the appeal to it, but when I found to be more of my taste, that's when I started disliking. Because I realized that I would spend most of the time trying to find non-canon content of them that I feel okay with. Otherwise, just doesn't hit. It feels more like it's the people that started shipping them right off the bat that likes it. And just from that feeling alone, that's a red flag in my book. They're romanticizing the victim with the abuser more. Or like normalizing the if he bullies you, he has a crush on you logic, which I never liked. And I already broke down my analysis and point of view of their relationship, so this just doesn't make sense to me. But using myself as a perfectly good example, my preference of this ship that I just went through is not as common/popular compared to what the others prefer, at least with the social I'm using. So I make sure to stay in the parts I enjoy. And yes, I enjoy contents other than ships, and yes, I do see content that I don't like, but I'm not going to waste my energy into ruining someone's day with ranting my dislike to something that wasn't meant for my enjoyment. I just scroll like you all should.